All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 9th edition of the Zoom PNWDigital non-net gathering. I'm Dave, W7NCX, and I believe we have Brad and 7ER here somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And Brad and I kind of co-host this. We have a Steve, N9VW, who's going to do a little presentation tonight on the Talkgroup Picker and some of the work that he's done with. Before we get over to that, does anyone have anything before we start the presentation? Brad, did you have anything?
Do not.
Steve, hopefully you have something.
Eventually, yes.
All right, are you ready to present?
Certainly.
All right, this is Steve, N9VW. Please take it away.
All right, good evening, everybody. Let me see. I have no idea what I was just sharing, sorry. Oh, come back screen, where'd you go? Okay, so we're gonna do a little talk tonight about talk groups, what they are, why we have so many, and a little bit about scope, which is something that some of you may not be aware of. It's kind of a different topic for a radio system. And then I'll go over how this relates with the Talkgroup Picker. So the first thing I need to do is, where did my share button go? Bring that page up. Into that. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All righty. So this is just the basic PNWDigital homepage opening screen. Under the technical information, PNW system support, we have a tab here that's called Talkgroups, and that is largely what I want to talk to you about this evening. You know, why do we have so many of them, and what do they do? A lot of these are statewide or area-wide talk groups, such as British Columbia or California, Caltech. Cascades is the east side of Washington. A lot of these you're all probably familiar with, but then there's a lot like Hawaii and Idaho, or I'm sorry, inland, that are probably not as familiar. This is a really good resource. It tells you what these talk groups are about and what their ID is and which time slot they're in, but unfortunately not much more. The timers over here have a very specific thing for you to understand, and that is push to talk versus full time. So for a certain area, such as Cascades 1, it is full time for the repeaters in the Cascades area, East Cascades, and push to talk on most of the other repeaters in the PNWDigital net. And that is very similar for all of these other groups. Now, a few of these have a really, really large scope, and that's PNW1 and PNW2. And these are listed as calling only, make your contact, find somewhere else to go, and move off. And I'll kind of hopefully explain that to you a little better. A couple of others that may be a tad confusing to people are the TAC channels. These are nothing more than tactical channels. They're open for anybody and everybody to use. They are push to talk on the repeater that you're using. So if you want to talk to somebody in, say, Seattle and the others in Spokane, you can both go to TAC1 and you're only lighting up the repeater that you're on and the repeater that he's on. And the rest of the system is open for all to listen to and participate on. Having said that, I did a little presentation. See how this goes. So, excuse me, this is the map that hopefully where am I? Everybody recognizes this is our interactive map. I've drawn some circles on here to indicate some of the different areas, and we'll kind of cycle through these. Now, the idea being here is to show you the scope that some of these resources have. So for normal operations, say you're just talking to somebody on local 1, you're only working on that repeater. If you talk to some BC1, you're going to light up all of the repeaters in BC as well as whichever repeater you're on. Same thing with Cascades East. You're going to light every one of them up. And Idaho, Oregon, and then Washington 1 and Washington 2 have pretty much the largest scope and encompass the whole state. So it's generally a good idea, if you're going to be on Washington 2, especially for a long time, it's probably a good idea to move over to a TAC channel so that not everybody on the planet's listening to you. Now, the one thing that is kind of bad is the PNW 1 and 2, and they light up every single living resource on the network. So if you light up time slot 1, you took over time slot 1 everywhere. People on a local machine can try and key in and change back to what they were listening to, but it's only for their repeater. So this activity is, or this reason is why we actively discourage not using those for long QSOs. Does that make sense to everybody? Getting a nod or two. Sorry, I'm having to switch between screens to see what's going on. Got a thumbs up. All right. So the next kid on the hit parade here list is the Talkgroup Picker. This was created. This is part of a database project that y'all may have heard rumblings of for the last better part of 2 years. We had a lot of problem with the network. It was growing really fast, and all of the Talkgroup matrices were maintained by Mike manually. And I'm going to tell you, that was a labor of love. And errors crept in. It was really, really hard to keep a definitive copy and, or, you know, so that everybody understood this is really what it is. This is what's happening. So keeping errors out was really hard. What we've done, or what I've done, is taken all of the C-bridge data that is on the 3 C-bridges that we're running today, and have read all that data in so that I can go through and look at things like Talkgroup associations with a particular site. So if we look at, say, Bellevue, Washington, you get a nifty list of all of the talk groups that are on Cougar, for instance. These numbers over here are kind of key. They tell you that they're part-time, and then the number behind it right here is, oh, hold it, I'm not sharing, I'm sorry. I'm sitting there just highlighting away. My bad. There. So back where I was is right here, go in, submit the query. It gives you all the information. Bellevue, Washington, Cougar Mountain is the site name and the 3-letter abbreviation associated with that site. It also gives you things like that it's part-time. The number tells you it's part-time, or push-to-talk or part-time, and will be active for 15 minutes once you key up on the channel. So if you're listening to a net in BC1 and you key up, your repeater will open up for that particular discussion for 15 minutes. If you're talking, you are interactive with it, it will keep resetting the timer. So it won't just arbitrarily time out on you. The 3 behind it is the hold off And this is a concept of, I've keyed up on the channel on BC1 on say my repeater. Nobody else can come in for 3 minutes and hijack that channel. You kind of get control of it momentarily. And the M behind it means it's got MCT controls on it. That's a discussion that is present. I'll show you where in the documentation. It's really pretty simple and gives you pretty much brute force control over the whole network. So as you can see, there's quite a few of talk groups that are on Cougar, and actually a number that need to be removed. And these are the particulars about where they live. The other thing that is right above it is the Talkgroup Matrix. Unfortunately, you didn't get to see me pick the Talkgroup Picker, but the Matrix gives you a bird's eye view of many sites all at one time. Sorry, I'll quit doing that. The various sites, which talk groups are on them, and their timing. And these are grouped as much as possible by functional areas. So there's Northwest Washington, which is where we were, Southwest Washington, Central Washington, Eastern, Central Oregon, the I-84 group. So it gives you a little bit easier method of being able to see what all's available to you in one look. And the nice thing with this is it is very much the definitive source of information now, being that this information is pulled directly from the source. So hopefully if you find any bugs in there, they're a lot easier to fix. So that actually went a whole lot faster than I figured it was going to go. So are there any questions on anything I've covered or anything you'd like to hear more about concerning any of this?
I'll make a couple comments, Steve.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. BC1 is actually full-time on the two lookout repeaters because of the proximity to Canada. Folks up there, when they come down to our side of the border, use it. And many of them use it even as it has such good coverage up where they are. Their local repeaters may not do as well. So that's an exception just because of the proximity. And there's a lot of exceptions across all the maps we have. So the talk group listing that shows push-to-talk and full-time talk groups, that's just a general rule and not definitive. What's definitive is the matrix, and it's a great resource to be able to see which talk groups are on which repeaters in a certain area. So if you can hit 5 repeaters, you might have some talk groups on one that aren't on another. And there's a lot of reasons for that we don't need to go into now, but that is the way it is. So thanks, Steve. That was great.
You're welcome. So what Mike was talking about here for BC1, most of the repeaters do have it, and they're on push-to-talk status, except for Bellingham, which is full-time. So like he said, there are a lot of different oddities and things that don't make sense at first, but there absolutely is a rhyme and a reason for it. Kind of the bottom line to the whole thing is that you should really try to select the resources that are going to light up the fewest repeaters, thereby leaving more of the system available for others. Just because you're using TAC 1 on, say, 2 repeaters, Seattle and Spokane, somebody else can light up TAC 1 on Tri-Cities and Yakima and down in Ariel and Portland. They won't interfere with each other. They're doing their own thing and having a good time. So that's much better than, say, lighting up Washington 1. That just kind of annihilated time slot 1 for the state of Washington. So, thank you, your fellow user, as you're lighting these machines up. Any other questions? Go ahead, Dave.
All right, I'll jump back in. Sometimes we get a question, and it may not be exactly applicable for BC1, but sometimes we'll get a question of someone's listening to a talk group and all of a sudden they lose their audio. And quite often it is just this idea of a part-time talk group. For instance, if you're on, looking at this screen here, if you're on the Ocean Shores repeater and you're listening to something that's going on Idaho 1, after 5 minutes, if you don't key up and reset the timer on that talk group on repeater, and say Steve and I are talking on there for some reason, and we're going, even though we keep on going, it will expire on your Ocean Shores repeater, for instance, in this case. So if you do have behavior like that you've seen, and it happens to be some multiple of 5 minutes, like 5 or 15, be very suspicious that what's probably happened is just the timer's expired, and you just need to re-chunk it to bring it back up. Benton is mentioning in chat that MMDVM servers do timeout, and that's true. So they're really no different in the idea of full-time and part-time. They have rules and timers, and some things are full-time, some things are part-time, and sitting on an MM, particularly single slot MMs, they do only have one talk path that's coming down the wire. So for them, it's pretty important that they do time out and go back to their regular programming. Let me throw it over to Brad and I'll gather a couple more thoughts here.
Let me unmute. One more distinction. It's come up before too. The term TAC was originally for the TAC 310, 311, 312, and beyond TACs, which are shared, well, resources, Brandmeister type outside of our network that can go all over the place depending on who's hooked up to them. The newer ones are the TAC 1, 2, and 3 that are controlled by PNWDigital. Those are our own TAC channels, and they don't go anywhere outside the system. Right, Mike? Our system anyway, the PNWDigital system.
That's true. Correcto.
Right. Yeah, so for us, they're a great resource to keep your tactical traffic in here. Well, unless you do want to talk to someone across the country and you need that resource, yeah, bang it out. But there's a distinction. The TAC 3, 10, and beyonds, they'll go to outside places if you need them to. And you can use them in state, I suppose, too, but they sometimes get busy. And the TAC 1, 2, and 3, they're kind of more private TACs, which accomplish the same thing, but they keep it within the PNWDigital family. So I'd go to those first, unless you need the TAC 310 type things. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Steve, I think you teased the MCTs. Did you want to go into some of those?
I wasn't really prepared to talk about those this evening. I guess we could put Mike on the spot if he wanted to give that a shot.
I'll give it a shot.
Well, I can give it a shot and see what happens, but go for it, Mike.
MCTs are special talk groups that really aren't designed to carry voice. They do control. So master control talk group. That's what MCT stands for. They have two main purposes, either to turn all talk groups that are on that repeater on, both slots, or correction, one slot or the other, or turn all the talk groups off on one slot or the other. So each repeater has a combination of 4 talk groups. They're underutilized. I don't think anybody actually uses them at all, probably because they don't know what they do. And I believe the community code plug has those plugged in. Steve, you can let me know. But I think those 4 talk groups or channels for each repeater are in there. But if you don't have them, you're kind of missing out. The way I kind of use them is if I'm on the road and I'm bored and I want to listen to something, even the talk groups I would never listen to normally, like 310, The Bridge, Worldwide, North America, you can turn them on. And whichever one goes active first, you hear, and if they go silent, another one will pop up. So you can hear everything on our network, as well as some of those very wide area, nationwide or worldwide talk groups. Conversely, you can turn everything off. That isn't quite as versatile, but it does silence a talk group that, say, somebody was joking around and keyed up on 5 wide area talk groups at one time and then went away. Just kerchunked them, turned them all on, and you were in the middle of a conversation. Well, now you're fighting 5 talk groups. So kerchunk MCT off, you can turn them all off quickly. And then just kerchunk the talk group that you were using to turn it back on, and you're back to where you were before the clown blessed you. That's some of the benefits of the MCTs. If you don't have MCTs in your radio, then what you do, best bet is to click kerchunk local 1 or local 2, whichever time slot you were using. Local 1 and 2 have 5-minute hold off timers, which is more than most talk groups. And it will silence all that activity for 5 minutes while you're talking away on local 1 or local 2. So local 1, local 2 are like mini MCTs in that they have 5-minute hold offs or 5-minute hold off timers for all the talk groups, where most of the other talk groups, if they have hold off timers at all, only have 3 minutes. So you have a way of getting around the if by just kerchunking local 2 or local 1 to turn everything off on that time slot, and then kerchunk your desired talk group back on. So local, besides being a voice talk group, it's also a mini MCT, or it's also a control talk group. And everybody has local 1 and 2, so you have the ability to turn off the talk groups that are a short-term bother. So simple enough, right?
And if you happen to be the person that did start up those other talk groups and you were just done with them and you wanted to politely turn the system back over, keying up something like local 2 would turn those off and kind of clean house. Somewhat similar to a Brandmeister 4000 disconnect, I think.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I hadn't thought of it. I'm not much of a Brandmeister person, so the finer points of their operation, I don't have much experience to make those comparisons.
Right.
Okay, and Mike, to answer your question, today they are not, the MCTs are not part of the generated code plug information, but I will put that on the list to do.
Yeah, I think we talked about that some time back on the project, and adding 4 more channels to every zone, I think, was a huge amount of work. And also the theory is nobody uses the MCTs anyway, so why clutter up a talk group? especially when we get the comments that folks, well, there's too many zones in the community plug, or too many entries, and they start paring them down. So I'd make that a back burner or low priority project, Steve.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, Matt.
Matt.
Yeah, I've got a question about network expansion. I'm pretty sure that maybe there's probably somebody aware that Boise actually has a DMR repeater. I don't know if anybody knows that.
They're not on the PNWDigital network.
So that's what my question was. Is I don't know about what the process is for adding somebody to the network or whatnot. I travel to Boise pretty frequently. My there, and that's where I'm originally from. And they've got a pretty decent size coverage for their repeater. I mean, it covers pretty much most of southwest Idaho in the Boise metropolitan area, pretty much all the way to Ontario and probably even further. So I don't know if that's maybe something, maybe somebody in the higher ups wants to explore, maybe about feelers of seeing about if they want to join PNW. I certainly would appreciate and benefit from it. I mean, because I have to create a whole. I mean, it's not that big of a deal for me. I just have a couple other zones I created for it, but I think that they might be interested in joining the greater network. Who knows? I don't know, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Alrighty. Well, for the first thing I'll tell you is it's not going to eliminate needing more zones, because all of their sites are going to turn into another zone, whether you like it or not. So there's that. The rest of it, I mean, anything's possible. There's doors that have to be open and discussions that need to happen. If they're running a Seabridge network, then it's possible that we can do a cross connection with them and just make them another talk group that we can pass stuff across as I'm generating work for Mike. Mike, is there any other better way to explain that?
Well, Boise's in Idaho, and that's a state that we carry and would embrace any repeater to join us. I suspect they are a Brandmeister repeater, and they probably don't know anything about a Seabridge, but they're very different, the operation. And pardon me?
A comment on that. So I do know from their website. I can find it. I do know that they're on Repeater Book for their DMR network. If you narrow it down to DMR repeaters in the Boise area, you'll find their repeater, and the repeater owner pretty much says utilize whatever you want, because I don't think that they know of, they might not know of PNW, or maybe they do, and just not haven't explored it, but they pretty much say use whatever you want on the Brandmeister network. You're free to load up anything. And so when I've gone there, I've actually just loaded up the Talkgroups here, and I've talked on the Talkgroups here from Boise. So they're pretty open to whatever's on Brandmeister. I can just say that.
Okay, well, you just kind of answered a question right off the top. So they are running in Brandmeister mode. There are a few channels that are available, or talk groups that are available within PNW that are available on Brandmeister as well. And if you look, excuse me one moment while I get back to shoot this. Okay. Sorry, gotta go find it again. Here we are. So if you look, like Bridge is on, or Bridge 3 is on Brandmeister, probably not a good choice. We've got others that are on Brandmeister or have Brandmeister connectivity. Oregon, I think Washington 1 does, generally having Brandmeister connectivity. So there are hooks out to the Brandmeister network that way. But unfortunately, they're probably not going to do you much good for, say, getting to Washington 2, since that's not connected.
I have talked to the repeater owner via email, asking him questions because he did say he had a Parrot, and he, on his website, they've got the Parrot channel and the Echo channel set up, but it doesn't work the way that it works in PNWDigital. It doesn't throw back at you. So honestly, I don't really think that he may not be even aware of PNWDigital, and I don't know, maybe it might be something that he would be interested in joining and making Boise part of the PNW family. I certainly would love to see that, but I mean, I suppose I have a repeater that I could probably set up at my mom's house in Nampa and set it up on the PNW network, but I might need some help with that.
Well, let me make a few comments, Matt. Well, what's your call, by the way?
AJ7OWB.
Okay, OWB, thank you. They are welcome to join us if something more than a garage repeater. You know, we want something, we would support something with wide area coverage. You said they have it, so that's not an issue.
Yeah.
The big
Yeah,
change.
they're up on the foothills in Boise, so they've got a good site for where that repeater is at.
Do you know if they're part of another group of repeaters other than being on Brandmeister? Are they, you know, some of the groups like Montana has a big network of repeaters, I think go into a couple, 3 states. If they're by themselves, they might be more amenable to come over to PNW. It's a big change. I would reach out to them directly and say, hey, this is an asset that's available if you wish to explore it, and here's why you should. And see if he's even interested in making the change. The biggest change is Brandmeister leaves the control in the hands of the user and somewhat with a repeater owner. You know, it's their show, they run it the way they want. Over on PNW, if you're a repeater owner, you have a little flexibility, but not altogether that much. You can request talk groups and we can work out the finer points. But for the most part, you're bringing your repeater to our show, and therefore, you know, you're in a watch hour movie. And some folks can't tolerate that. And that's why they don't like sea bridges, because they can't control them. They want a hotspot, which they can control, or Brandmeister repeater. So it might be a hard sell. And I don't think we'll reach out to them for no particular reason than, in our experience, we've had almost zero success with cold calls. It takes somebody that knows the folks or uses the repeater, opens the door for a dialogue. So if you think that's,
if you don't mind, I mean, I would, on behalf of PNW, I mean, I would reach out to them and
Oh yeah, you
see
bet. It's
see if
fine.
they're interested and say,
It's fine. We have a
okay, I'll
repeater
do that.
page. Okay. We
Go
have a
ahead.
repeater page set up for just that. Bring your own repeater.
Okay,
And it explains.
I'll email the guy and
Okay.
talk to him about it and see what we can do.
Yep. But that
Hopefully it
goes,
works out.
yeah, I think, well, it's a possibility and it sounds like it would be an asset for us. You know, we have a couple repeaters in Idaho now, 3, 4, fourth one coming, I think. You know, so we have some presence, but nothing in Boise, and that would be a good one to have.
I think it would be good for them because really when I was there was just a lot of random talk and not really a lot of stuff. So I mean, they might enjoy being part of you know, a bigger network of repeater owners and have access to everything that PNW does.
Well, let us know how it goes then,
So
and we'll see.
yeah, I'll do what I can and I'll spread the good word.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Matt.
All righty. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Kind of in the last 5 minutes of the show. Going once. Going twice. All right, I'm gonna turn it back over to the MC. David, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Steve.